So here's the first question that you asked me about. You see here I drew in these arrows. I just want to make sure you understand that means 0 goes into x. That's this, x. The first value is 0. Similarly, when 0 is assigned to y, that's what this is here. Okay, so you're supposed to study the code segment to see what will be output. Values of x and y will be displayed multiple times during the running of the program, and you might recognize a pattern. From the list of possible outcomes listed, 2 are impossible. Choose the 2 outputs that are impossible for this code to produce. So at the end of the day, it might be a good idea for you to take a look at some of the numbers that you're going to see. And I have a note here. If the condition is true, the loop does not execute. For example, if x is currently 3, then repeat until x equals 3 will not execute. So that's a clue. Okay, so I'm going to show you kind of what this all means. Output is what this display is doing. Okay, so the first time x is 0, repeat until x is 3. So when we go inside the loop, we set y to 0. Then we add 1 to x. And then we encounter another loop that says repeat until y equals 3. So I'm basically going to stay inside of this inner loop until I display something. So when I go inside this loop, y increments to 1. I display the current value of x, which is 0. Oh no, I'm sorry, we added 1 here, which is 1, and the current value of y, which is 1. So now I'm going to go back up because remember, y is 1. So I go inside the loop and I make y 2. Then I display the current value of x, which is 1, and the current value of y, which is 2. So then I go back up, y is 2, so I'm going to go inside the loop, and then I add 1 to y. So now it's 3. I display x, which is 1, and y, which is 3. Now, when I go back up, y is 3. So I'm not going to do this anymore, and that means I've reached the end of this loop. So I go back up, and it says repeat until x is 3. And remember, at this point, x is 1. So I go inside. The first thing that happens is y gets reset to 0. I increment x to 2, and then it says repeat until y equals 3. So we're down here now. The first thing we do is increment y to 1. I display the current value of x, which is 2, and the current value of y, which is 1. I go back up, y is 1, so I go inside. Now I increment y by 1, it's 2. I display the current value of x, which is 2, and the current value of y, which is 2. Go back up, y is still not 3. I go inside, I increment y to 3. I display the current value of x, which is 2, and the current value of y, which is 3. I go back up, y is 3, so I do not execute the loop. I go back up, and at this point in the program, x is 2. So I'm not 3 yet. So it means I'm going to execute the loop. I go inside. First thing I do is increment y to 0, and then I add 1 to x. Then I encounter the inner loop again, so I add 1 to y. I display the current value of x, which is 3, and the current value of y, which is 1. I go back up. Since y is 1, I go inside this loop. I add 1 to y, so it's 2. I display x and y. I go back up. Y is still not 3. I go inside. I add 1 to y, and then I display the current value of x and the current value of y. Now, this time, when I go back up here, x is 3, so I'm done. So remember what the question was, 2 outputs that are impossible. So 0, 0 is impossible, and 2, 4 is impossible. These other ones, y, y, I actually had as output. 2, 1, I actually had as output. And 2, 2, I actually had as output. All right, continuing on to the next problem. I have a counter variable that's set to 0. It increments by 1 each time through the loop. What will the value of counter be after the following loop executes? So this is my work. 0 gets put into counter, n is 6. Now, as long as n is greater than 0, I go inside. What do? I subtract 2. So n becomes 4. Oh my God, Tiger won. Sorry, Tiger Woods won. Okay, then I increment counter to 1. So now counter's 1. I go back up. Is n still greater than 0? It is. So what do? I go inside the loop, subtract 2, and then I add 1 to counter, and now counter becomes 2. I go back up. Since n is still 2, I go inside. N is now 0, and I add 1 to counter. But this time when I go back up, 0 is not greater than 0. So then I skip around the while loop, and I print the current value of counter, which is 3. And that's what gets output. And our final question is on page 17. Okay, so we have a list here, an array, and it's called data. And here are all the values that are stored. I have a variable val that's set to 0 and a value I that's set to 1. Now you're being told that this loop will repeat 3 times, okay? So the first time through the loop it says val equals the current value of val, which is 0, plus data of 1, because I is 1. So data of 1 is 3. So we're taking 0 plus 3 is 3. Now I go back up, I repeat again. Oh, I'm sorry, I gets incremented to 2. So I should have crossed this out and wrote 2 after the first time through the loop. So now I go back up, I take the current value of val, which is 3, and I add to it data of 2. Data of 2 is 10, so 3 plus 10 is 13. After I do that, I increment I to 3. Oh, here's my I values right here. Increment I to 3. Now I go back up, I take the current value of val, which is 13, plus data of 3. Data of 3 is 4. So 13 plus 4 is 17. So I've repeated 3 times and display the current value of val, and the current value of val is 17. So that's it, and I hope that helps.